Welcome back. So let's take a few moments to review. What hypnosis does is accesses the unconscious part and then getting this part to make the decision to stop smoking. And part of getting this part to make a decision to stop smoking is evaluating the gain or payoff to the whole self. What is perceived as a gain may in fact be detrimental to the whole self. The unconscious part perceives itself as a smoker, that is its identity, and says in effect, I'm a smoker. And then actions naturally rise out of your identity. Now, one of the basic questions to ask the unconscious part is, what does smoking do for you? What do you gain by smoking? How does smoking help you? Once you understand the gain, there is then the possibility of finding other ways to fulfill that gain. For example, if one of the gains of smoking is that it helps you to relax, then there are many, many ways that you could discover to fulfill that same function. Now let's look at an example of how gains function in our lives. Most people start smoking to protect themselves from unpleasant feelings. I mean, most people start smoking in their teenage years, and from the age of about 10 through 21, we're going through what's called the socialization period, where we want to fit in with everyone else. Now, when you first started smoking all those years ago, you were doing it consciously and with awareness, and you did it for a reason. Something motivated you to start smoking. I mean, you didn't start smoking 20 or 30 a day. You were having the odd one or two, and then you built up and you built up, and you became better and better at it. And then all of a sudden it became something that you were doing. You became a smoker. And at that point it moved over from being a conscious choice to have a cigarette to then being a programmed habit. And the moment that happened, it became very difficult for you to consciously change, because now it was out of your conscious awareness. I mean, if you stand outside a school, I mean, even today with all the publicity about smoking, you'll see all these kids coming out of school, and the ones that smoke will pull out their cigarettes, and they will form a small group. And the ones that don't smoke, well, what are they going to feel? They're going to feel left out. And the worst feeling that you can feel as a teenager is to feel left out. I'm sure you can remember that. They will probably feel even worse because the ones that are smoking will tend to put them down. So there's a great pressure on them. So in other words, they're feeling left out, and so the cigarette is then offered up as a solution to feel a sense of belonging. And then they have their first cigarette. Now it tastes disgusting, they cough, they sputter, but now they fit in, and they feel good. So what you tend to do is that you link up at an early age that when you're having unpleasant feelings, having a cigarette will make you feel better. And then later on in life, whenever you're having a bad day, the brain's already linked up bad feelings. Well, have a cigarette. That'll make you feel better. In other words, the act of smoking becomes your way of dealing with, but certainly in a counterproductive way, certain unpleasant emotions. You are stuck back in time when you first started, when it was helping you to fit in, to rebel, to make the transition from childhood to adulthood. Another way of saying that is that you're still living in the past. Now the problem, of course, is that it's no longer appropriate. Everything has changed now, and what you're doing with the action of smoking is actually no longer serving you in any way, shape, or form, because there are many, many ways of dealing with those emotions than through smoking. And there are a million ways of feeling better that are actually healthy. So smoking is not really serving you. It's actually putting you at greater risk physically from the dangers of smoking. And you know the dangers of smoking as well as I do. I don't need to preach to you about that. Now, when this part of your self, the unconscious self, truly gets that smoking is not serving you as a whole person, and it's actually putting you at greater risk physically, then you will be only too willing to give it up because you want what's in your best interests. Now the problem most people have is that these parts of the self are at war with one another. I mean, you feel like you're fighting yourself because you are fighting yourself. There's a part of you that wants to give up smoking, and the other part that is still smoking because of the payoff, which is really not a payoff at all. Now the task in hypnosis is to talk to this part and get it to work with the conscious part so that all the parts of you are working in unison and acting in your best interests. Now what we're going to do with hypnosis is kind of go through the back door. I mean, of course, with your permission. We're going to talk with this part of you and help it to realize that that what it's doing is not protecting you at all. I mean, it's actually potentially killing you. And then once it truly understands that it's not serving your total self, that it's potentially killing you, then this part will be glad to give up the habit of smoking. And then it becomes easy, because then you have both parts of yourself working with you rather than fighting with yourself. And then it becomes easy for you to stop smoking, and then our job's pretty much done.